For 7 years, he'd driven his mobile phone repair van through the city's neighborhoods, fixing cracked screens and software problems with the same methodical precision that made customers trust him with their most personal devices. Until the day he witnessed an armed gang war erupting around innocent bystanders, and the weapon hidden in his repair van wasn't the only skill he'd kept secret from his electronic surveillance days. Welcome to True Human Tales. Before we begin this powerful story of hidden courage and neighborhood heroism, tell me in the comments from which city in the world are you watching this video today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. TechFix Mobile Solutions operated from a customized Ford Transit van that had been Eddie Morales' mobile office for 7 years, serving customers throughout the metropolitan area who needed phone and tablet repairs but couldn't afford the time or expense of visiting traditional repair shops. The van was equipped with professional-grade diagnostic equipment, a clean room environment for delicate repairs, and an inventory of parts that allowed Eddie to fix most problems on site within 30 minutes of arrival. Eddie's service model filled a crucial gap in the urban technology ecosystem, providing convenient and affordable repairs for working families, elderly customers who struggled with technology store environments, and small business owners who couldn't operate without their communication devices. His mobile approach meant that customers could continue their daily routines while their essential technology was being restored to full functionality. The van itself was a masterpiece of compact efficiency. Workbenches that folded down from wall mounts, organized storage systems that kept thousands of small parts accessible within arm's reach, and diagnostic equipment that would have impressed the technicians at major electronics retailers. Eddie had spent months customizing the interior layout to maximize both workspace efficiency and customer comfort during repair consultations. At 52, Eddie moved with the careful precision of someone who understood that modern electronics required both technical expertise and infinite patience, his hands steady enough for the microscopic soldering work that smartphone repairs often demanded. His diagnostic abilities were legendary among customers who'd tried multiple repair shops before finding Eddie's mobile service, which could identify problems that other technicians missed or declared unrepairable. Eddie's expertise encompassed far more than simple hardware repair. He understood software troubleshooting well enough to resolve complex connectivity issues, could recover data from devices that appeared completely dead, and somehow always knew exactly which combination of parts and procedures would restore functionality to devices that other repair services had declared beyond hope. Regular customers had developed genuine relationships with Eddie over the years, often scheduling routine maintenance visits and seeking his advice about technology purchases that represented significant investments for budget-conscious families. The Rodriguez family called Eddie whenever any of their 4 children's phones encountered problems, trusting his recommendations about repair versus replacement decisions. Small business owners appreciated Eddie's willingness to prioritize emergency repairs that could prevent costly communication disruptions. What made Eddie exceptional wasn't just his technical knowledge or customer service, though both were considerable, but his understanding of how essential communication technology had become for family safety, business operations, and social connections that kept urban communities functioning. He could explain technical problems in terms that non-technical customers could understand, provide realistic assessments of repair costs versus device replacement, and somehow always found ways to restore critical functionality for customers on limited budgets. Eddie's route covered 12 neighborhoods across 3 police districts, with scheduled appointments and emergency calls that required careful coordination to minimize travel time and maximize service availability. His customer base included everyone from elderly residents who needed help with basic phone functions to tech-savvy teenagers seeking repair options that wouldn't alert parents to damage caused by careless handling. Children were naturally fascinated by Eddie's mobile workshop and his ability to transform broken devices into fully functional phones and tablets. He had an unlimited supply of simple explanations for complex technical processes, and parents appreciated how Eddie's repairs often came with informal technology education that helped families use their devices more effectively and safely. Eddie's scheduling required sophisticated logistics management with route optimization software that accounted for traffic patterns, appointment priorities, and the reality that electronic device failures created genuine emergencies for people who depended on constant communication for work, family coordination, and personal safety in urban environments. What customers and even regular clients didn't know was that Eddie's exceptional diagnostic abilities and systematic approach to electronic troubleshooting had been developed in contexts that required considerably more precision than smartphone repair. His expertise in signal analysis, electronic surveillance detection, and communication system security came from 18 years with the Drug Enforcement Administration's Technical Operations Division, where he'd specialized in electronic surveillance and counter-surveillance operations. Special Agent Eddie Morales had served from 1990 to 2008, working everything from routine wiretap installations to complex investigations involving international drug cartels that employed sophisticated electronic countermeasures and communication encryption. His official DEA record listed his specialty as electronic surveillance and communication security, but his actual experience included coordinating undercover operations where electronic surveillance provided the intelligence necessary to dismantle criminal organizations that threatened entire communities. Eddie had worked cases where drug operations employed military-grade electronic security, professional counter-surveillance specialists, and communication systems that required advanced technical knowledge to penetrate. His expertise included designing surveillance operations that could monitor criminal communications without detection, coordinating multi-agency investigations that relied on electronic intelligence, and maintaining equipment that functioned reliably in environments where discovery could prove fatal. His transition to civilian repair work had been carefully planned after experiences that had taught him to value the positive applications of electronic technology for family communication, business operations, and community connections rather than criminal surveillance and law enforcement operations. His mobile repair service represented everything he'd learned to appreciate about communication technology, keeping families connected, enabling small businesses to thrive, and providing affordable access to essential services. The DEA knew Eddie was transitioning to civilian electronics work, but had no idea he was maintaining the same neighborhoods where he'd once conducted surveillance operations. His background seemed perfect for technical work that required both electronic expertise and the community trust necessary for mobile service operations in urban environments, where customers needed to feel secure, inviting service providers into their homes and businesses. What they didn't know was that Eddie's van included more than standard repair equipment. The concealed compartment behind his parts storage contained sophisticated communication monitoring equipment that he'd quietly maintained to track criminal activity patterns in the neighborhoods he served, using his mobile route to gather intelligence about drug operations and gang activities that threatened the communities where his customers lived and worked. For 7 years, Eddie had found profound satisfaction in his repair work. Helping people maintain essential communication had gradually replaced his responsibilities for gathering intelligence about criminal communications, and the steady rhythm of service calls had allowed him to serve his community without the dangerous undercover work that DEA operations required. His greatest pleasure came from restoring communication links that kept families safe and businesses operational in neighborhoods where electronic devices represented both economic necessities and security lifelines. Wednesday, August 14th, was a typical summer day when Eddie's mobile service was especially valuable for customers who couldn't leave air-conditioned homes and offices to visit traditional repair shops. His schedule included routine maintenance calls, emergency repairs, and new customer consultations throughout the Riverside district, a mixed residential and commercial area where working families depended on reliable communication for both employment and personal safety. Eddie had arrived in the neighborhood at 10 a.m. to begin his scheduled service calls, starting with a screen replacement for a single mother whose phone was essential for coordinating childcare and work responsibilities. By noon, he was 3 appointments into his route when he noticed unusual activity that his surveillance training had taught him to recognize as potentially dangerous. Two groups of men were positioning themselves at opposite ends of the commercial block where Eddie was parked, their movements and communication patterns indicating coordination that suggested something more organized than routine street activity. His electronic monitoring equipment, which he maintained partly from habit and partly from genuine concern for neighborhood safety, was detecting unusual radio chatter that indicated criminal organization rather than legitimate business. Eddie's threat assessment protocols, refined through years of monitoring criminal communications and predicting gang behavior, immediately recognized the preparation patterns for what law enforcement called a territory dispute, a violent confrontation between criminal organizations that often resulted in extended gunfire that endangered innocent bystanders in surrounding businesses and residential areas. The neighborhood around Eddie's van included a daycare center, elderly housing complex, and several small businesses that would be filled with people who had no connection to criminal activity, but would be trapped in any crossfire that developed. His surveillance equipment indicated that both groups were armed with automatic weapons and appeared to be preparing for a confrontation that could turn the peaceful commercial district into a war zone. As Eddie assessed the developing situation, he observed civilians in the immediate area. Children walking home from summer programs, elderly residents conducting daily errands, and business owners who were unaware that their normal afternoon was about to become extremely dangerous. His technical equipment was detecting communication patterns that suggested the confrontation would begin within minutes. At 1:23 p.m., Eddie's surveillance equipment detected the radio signals that preceded coordinated gang violence, and he observed both groups of armed men beginning to move into positions that would create crossfire patterns across the commercial area where innocent people were conducting normal daily activities. Eddie realized he was witnessing the preparation for a gang war that could result in civilian casualties among the community members he'd been serving for 7 years, people who'd invited him into their homes and trusted him with their most personal technology. The children, elderly residents, and small business owners in his service area had no awareness of the impending violence and no means of protecting themselves from automatic weapons fire. That's when Eddie stopped being a mobile phone repair technician and became a DEA agent again. Eddie's response combined the electronic surveillance expertise he'd developed during his federal career with intimate knowledge of the neighborhood and its residents that he'd acquired through 7 years of daily service calls. His first priority was protecting the innocent civilians who had no connection to criminal activity, but would be trapped in any gang violence that erupted in their community. Eddie's communication equipment, ostensibly maintained for repair service coordination, included sophisticated systems that could monitor and disrupt criminal communications while simultaneously coordinating with law enforcement agencies. His surveillance training enabled him to provide real-time intelligence about criminal positions, weapons, and tactical intentions to responding police units. Eddie's service weapon, a Glock 22 that he'd maintained according to federal agent protocols throughout his civilian career, came from the concealed compartment in his van where he'd kept it accessible for exactly this type of community emergency. His position in the mobile repair van provided excellent oversight of the developing confrontation while allowing him to coordinate civilian protection. The criminal organizations had expected to conduct their territorial dispute in a neighborhood where civilian witnesses would be too frightened to interfere, and law enforcement response would be delayed by the time required to assess and respond to gang violence reports. What they encountered instead was immediate resistance from someone who understood both their communication systems and their tactical methodologies. Eddie's DEA training enabled him to disrupt criminal communications while coordinating with responding law enforcement, using his electronic expertise to prevent the gangs from coordinating their attack while ensuring that police units received accurate intelligence about criminal positions and weapons capabilities. Eddie's surveillance equipment, designed for monitoring criminal communications, provided perfect intelligence-gathering capabilities for directing police tactical units toward optimal response positions while simultaneously guiding civilian evacuation through routes that avoided potential crossfire zones. The neighborhood's layout, which Eddie knew intimately from 7 years of service calls, became a tactical asset as he coordinated civilian protection through businesses, residential areas, and emergency routes that kept innocent bystanders away from the gang confrontation while enabling law enforcement to establish control without endangering community members. Eddie's electronic countermeasures capabilities allowed him to disable criminal communication systems while maintaining coordination with law enforcement agencies, using his technical expertise to prevent gang coordination while ensuring that police response remained tactically superior throughout the intervention. Within 12 minutes, the gang confrontation was disrupted, the neighborhood was secure, and the civilians who lived and worked in Eddie's service area were protected from violence that could have transformed their community into a battlefield. Eddie's immediate recognition of the criminal operation and technical intervention had prevented what could have become a mass casualty incident in a neighborhood where families and small businesses depended on safety for their daily survival. The protection procedures that Eddie implemented proved their effectiveness as civilians were guided to safety with no casualties and minimal disruption to community life. Residents later described how the service van guy had somehow known to direct them away from dangerous areas before anyone realized there was a problem, not understanding until afterward that their trusted repair technician had been monitoring threats to their safety for years. The investigation revealed the scope of the planned gang war, a territorial dispute designed to establish dominance over drug distribution networks in residential neighborhoods where criminal organizations could operate with minimal law enforcement interference. The confrontation had been planned to demonstrate power through violence that would intimidate both rival criminals and innocent community members. What the gangs hadn't researched was Eddie Morales. The DEA agents who debriefed Eddie were familiar with his technical operations background and understood immediately why the criminal operation had been disrupted so effectively. 18 years of experience monitoring criminal communications and coordinating surveillance operations, combined with 7 years of intimate knowledge of neighborhood residents and community vulnerabilities. The media wanted to interview him about his transition from federal law enforcement to community service, about the electronic surveillance capabilities that protected neighborhoods from criminal activity, about the moment when his two careers had intersected to protect the people who'd become his customers and neighbors. Eddie politely declined interview requests, preferring to focus attention on community safety rather than law enforcement techniques. TechFix Mobile Solutions resumed normal operations the following day with enhanced awareness of Eddie's dual role as both technology repair specialist and community protector. Eddie returned to his service route with the same quiet professionalism that had made his mobile repairs essential to neighborhood life, fixing communication devices with the same dedication that had made him valuable to both his federal career and his community service work. The only visible change was increased appreciation from customers who began understanding that Eddie's presence in their neighborhood provided both technological support and security awareness that extended far beyond phone repairs. Eddie had requested that his service remain focused on technology solutions rather than security services, preferring to be known for keeping families connected rather than for the criminal threats he monitored to keep them safe. Because some people transition from protecting communities through law enforcement to protecting them through essential services, but their protective instincts had never really changed focus. Eddie had spent 18 years using electronic surveillance to gather intelligence about criminal threats, and 7 years using the same neighborhoods to provide services that kept families safe through reliable communication and quiet security awareness. The phones were different, but the mission remained consistent. Use technical expertise to help communities function safely while standing ready to protect residents from criminal enterprises that would cause harm. So now I ask you, have you ever met someone like Eddie? Someone who seemed like just a friendly mobile repair technician until the moment they revealed the depths of their expertise and dedication. Someone whose daily presence made you feel safer without knowing why? Tell me in the comments where are you watching from today and share their story with us. And if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us make sure they are. We publish human stories that matter every single week. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next story. And remember, Sometimes the person fixing your phone knows more about protecting your neighborhood than you could ever imagine.